It's Friday, and this is our final live. So let me pull Kayla in. We're going to be chatting about meal prep today. So stay tuned for that. See if that worked. Good morning.
Good morning. Happy
Happy
Friday.
Friday.
Yay. Thank God.
It worked. You made it. Cool. All
Perfect.
right. So, um, so today we're going to be talking about meal prep, which is like everyone's pain point, of course.
Yeah.
But if you haven't already watched the other videos, please go watch the other two. First one we talked about on Monday was protein, the importance of protein, how to get enough of it. And then on Wednesday, we talked a little bit about cravings and actually protein beautifully into that. So go watch that one, definitely. They're not very long, but full of good information. And today we're going to be talking about meal prep. So, Kayla, talk to me about meal prep. I feel like this is the thing that like everyone's like, I have to spend my whole day on Sunday like meal prepping for the week, or I'm not prepared. Like, how do you help people to tackle this?
Yeah. So, well, kind of to start, like touching on the last video when we were talking about like pleasure inducing food versus satisfying food. So, that transition that we were talking about in the last video of less pleasure inducing food and more satisfying food is the basis for using nutrition, obviously, to look and feel your best. And so it's therefore also the basis for meal planning and preparation. And like you said, I feel like people think this has to be like you have to take an entire day to plan out every single meal for the whole week, but there's such easier ways to go about it. Um, and we do offer a meal planning tool in our app, which does emphasize education. But like, this is really why we don't believe in meal plans, because for long-term success, you really need to know which foods are the best choices for you and why. I think that's the biggest thing. Um, that way, you have the empowerment of being able to make choices on your own. A meal plan is not going to teach you that. You're not going to follow a meal plan for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's something that we will be able to help you with. So, another really important key that I want to touch on for meal prep and planning is keeping things as simple as possible. And this is to make the transition as simple as and sustainable as possible. I think a lot of times people, like I had just mentioned, they overthink it. And they think they need to cook these elaborate meals, which is not the case. So again, just kind of keeping things really simple. And so this is kind of a reason why we're also not really big on like recipes. I feel like sometimes people come to us and they're like, can you give me recipe ideas for dinner and recipe ideas for, lunch or whatever, which, we help people like figure out how to build meals, but sometimes I feel like people, again, kind of going back to the whole pleasure induced foods, they think that they need to have this like really crazy meal with all these flavors and and a lot of the people that come to us are really busy to begin with. Like they're usually busy moms who, either work full time and have 3 to 4 kids and the kids have sports and they're, just trying to survive. Trying to figure out what recipe you should make next really isn't the smartest thing. Um, but, that's not to say that recipes are bad. So it's really like if you have the time and you enjoy cooking, absolutely go for it. Like, we'll help you with different kinds of recipes that will, satisfy your goals. But I think, again, that's not the most important thing to be focusing on, especially with someone who is very busy trying to, just get adequate meals in.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times and I definitely guilty of this myself. I'm like, okay, like what are we gonna have for dinner? And then I'm like, paralyzed by like possibility. I'm like, well, we could do this or we could do that. Oh, that's gonna take a lot of prep time. Or, it's like it's very overwhelming when it comes to meals, especially when it comes to dinner, because of course it's like usually the biggest meal of the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's very overwhelming to like really think about, okay, what am I gonna do? So, how do people keep it simple? How do they do that?
So, so here's one of the simple meal planning strategies that we suggest to our clients. So start with your protein source, and this is big. I feel like a lot of people like protein not it may not necessarily be at the top of their mind when they're building their meals, but that should be the very first thing you're thinking of. So kind of going back to our first video on the importance of protein and making sure you're getting enough, if you make sure first thing when you're building your meal you're getting 4 ounces of protein, like, you're good. So that's what we always suggest starting off with, is your protein source. And again, ideally, we want this to be like a fresh source of meat, poultry, or seafood, like we talked about in the first video, and a 4 ounce portion of it. And of course, for vegans and vegetarians, that's something that we will work with them on, for other options. And then from there, um, simply add 1 or 2 non-starchy vegetables, like, for example, kale, broccoli, cauliflower, spinach. I mean, there's a whole, list to choose from. And you could even choose lettuce and make it a big salad. And that's honestly my go-to for pretty much like all my lunches, which I'll kind of touch on in a second.
Mhm.
Um, but then if you like, you can add some other sides or toppings, like sweet potato, olives, nuts, berries, avocado. And then, say it's a salad, then use something simple and healthy for a sauce or dressing, like olive oil or avocado oil. I like to put Celtic sea salt on top for some extra flavor. You could use oil and vinegar, or what I've also done is kind of make my own simple dressing with, like, oil, mustard, a little bit of apple cider vinegar, or balsamic vinegar. So it's easy to be able to kind of make these quick meals. But another thing to think about too is these dressings and sauces. So there are some decent options out there, which again is something that we do give our clients to if they're looking for different options at the grocery store. Um, but you just have to be careful. A lot of dressings and sauces come with a lot of unwanted ingredients and a lot of added sugar.
Mhm.
Added sugar is so sneaky. It's literally in like almost everything, and in a lot of things that you don't realize. So just like, being able to make your own dressing, or even honestly, if you're good with just sticking with olive oil, like that's going to cut down on a lot of, unwanted stuff.
Right.
Um, but like, so for example, for me, so my typical lunch honestly is usually a big salad. I know some people aren't really big on salads, but I feel like the people who aren't big on them aren't making them
Right.
right. So, um, my salads are big. I get this like big bowl and I load it up with whatever, lettuce I'm feeling that week. And typically I go with romaine. But so I load it up with the lettuce. Then I usually will use leftovers from like leftover protein from the dinner the night before. And this is huge, and actually something I will touch on pretty soon too. So I either will use protein leftover from dinner the night before, or some really like good options to have on hand if you are short on time and you don't have a lot of protein. I love the Belinsky pre-cooked chicken sausages. I tell all my clients about them. They're pre-cooked, so you literally just buy them, chop them up. There's 12 grams of protein per link.
Oh,
So two of those, throw it in a salad, you're good to go. And then from there, I typically will add fresh nuts. Sometimes I will also put sauerkraut on top of my salad, and sauerkraut is great for gut health.
sure.
Um, and then I will literally just top it with extra virgin olive oil and sea salt. And I know that to some people that sounds so boring and so like, ugh, like that's not gonna taste good. I promise you, like, and kind of like we talked about in another video, like as you start to appreciate the subtle flavors of whole foods and you go through this transition that we're talking about and you're eating more whole foods, your taste does change. And I like sometimes literally crave some of my salads. Like I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to have it. And I think it just depends on the stuff you're putting in it. And like I love having all those different flavors, and every bite you're getting all those flavors with the berries and the nuts and the texture and all of
Mhm.
that, which I think people do crave that.
Yep.
Um, so it doesn't have to be so elaborate. And then, like, for example, last night for dinner, we had um, baked pork chops with half of a sweet potato and collard greens. And that was it. And I use ghee butter. I put the ghee butter over the collard greens, sea salt, and seasonings on the pork chop. And, I think the biggest thing is just don't overthink it. Like, keep it simple, and then when you do go out to dinner with friends or family or whatever, like, then you can kind of explore different options and you actually like appreciate the different meals that you're
Mhm.
being offered when you do go out and stuff. And, I think that's really important too, is like when you're home, try your best to make your own meals and make these meals whole foods. And then when you're out, then you can kind of use that as your opportunity to enjoy some more indulgent meals.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I feel like, I do there is definitely a difference like of, between when you are looking at food as like something that you have to like feel very like, oh, everything has to be elaborate and indulgent, and then versus like if it's a treat instead of every single day, every single meal, it's like you appreciate it so much more. When it's different. Like we went out to dinner last week. We went to Mila's in Schenectady and it was so good. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I haven't had this kind of stuff in so long.
Yeah.
And it wasn't healthy. It was still really healthy food, but it was something that I just wouldn't make for myself at home.
Hmm.
So I feel like when it's like a rare occasion, you just really appreciate it. Like, hey, this is like so good, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And it was like the same thing when we were just on our honeymoon and we were in California. And I mean, there's tons of amazing restaurants in California. And yeah, same thing. And it like, just like random meals that I would never make for myself at home, that I like, sea bass with like, little like shaved cucumber things on top, and like, just like fun stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I think, another really big thing too for a lot of the busy people is they're like, well, I don't have time, and I don't have time to even like, prep dinner some nights and stuff like that. So I think another important thing is, well, number one, when you do have the time to make a decent meal, make a lot of it. Like
Yes.
when we have the time to, make like a good dinner, I make sure that I am making intentional leftovers, um, and that I am cooking in bulk so that I can use the leftovers the next day or maybe even for 2 days, for my lunches and maybe even dinner the next
Yeah.
night. Um, so like that's something that we're able to help clients with as well, and like give them some time saving tips. Um, but another thing too is I think planning your week out in advance is really key for anyone, to be honest. And just kind of seeing where you do have the extra time to prepare some of this stuff. Another little hack that I have, that like if I'm again short on time, is every Sunday I always hard boil a dozen eggs just to have them on hand for the whole week. And I
That's
know not, obviously not everyone eats eggs, but again, that's a little something that like just these little things, like if you always have them on hand, you're never going to be stuck in that situation where like, oh my God, like what, I got to grab a protein bar. I got to, just like something really quick or a bowl of cereal. Um, so I think being prepared in that sense is key as well.
hmm
Um, but again, like, everyone's situation is different. And that's why I think working with a coach is so important, because we're able to work with you depending, no matter where you're at in life or what your schedule is like we are going to sit with you and be like, okay, like let's see what your schedule is like. Let's see where you have some extra time. Let's make it as simple as possible. Make your time worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely. I think these are all like amazing tips. Um, Kayla, can you talk just a little bit about when you're going to be in the gym next week, how people can get a hold of you, and a little bit about your program, how many spots you have left?
Yes. So I will be at Her Strength next week. Tuesday evening, I will get there at around 4 o'clock and stay through the classes of the evening there. And then I will also be there Saturday. So next Saturday, the 20, I have a calendar here, 23rd, I will be there at 8 a.m. and I will be staying through the morning classes that day. So if you're there, or even if you don't plan to be there, you can always drop in and I will be there. We'll go into the office. I'll answer any questions. We'll talk about the program, whatever you need. Um, we do also have the option to set up a call with me, free call, and that will be through the link. And we can post a link in comments too, but it's just going to be fitfilled.com/her-strength. Um, and we do have about 5 more slots open. So, and again, I think like for those that are kind of hesitant because of the time of year, this is like the time to be doing something like this, to be working with someone that's able to help you through this tough time of year, this busy time of year. Um, so yeah, and I think like we talked about in the last video too, like, being able to have someone to lean on when you're like, holy crap, like I have the busiest week ever. Like, what am I going to do for this meal and this meal? And then like, text me and be like, hey, like, what am I going to, I will literally help you through it. So I'm with you every single step of the way through this program.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've had several of our members go through your program and they absolutely love it. And I think that, it is important to have someone support you through the busiest times of the year. Otherwise, you're just going to end up January, 2nd, you're going to go, crap. I just like ate my way through the last 6 weeks and didn't even think about it. And I was so busy that I just like ate whatever was in front of me and, whatever Aunt Mildred was giving me and the jello Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that's a family favorite of mine. But anyway,
No,
um,
it's
yeah,
yeah, it's so true. And one thing I want to touch on quick that I don't want people to think that if they start this program, they aren't going to be able to enjoy some of their favorite holiday treats and meals and stuff like that. Like, it's all about balance and it's all about being able to incorporate those things in while also getting to your goals.
yeah, absolutely, and it is possible to do both.
Absolutely. I live it every day.
For sure. For sure. For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kayla. This has been a great week of lives with lots of tips.
Yes.
Um, we'll post how people can get a hold of you. And again, like we mentioned, you'll be there in the gym Tuesday afternoon next week and then Saturday morning. So, people can meet you in person and pick your brain and ask questions and find out more information about what would work for them specifically with your program. So, we're looking forward to that.
Awesome. And thanks for having me,
For
Nora.
sure. Have a good weekend.
You too. Talk to you
Bye.
soon. Bye.